You say something, make something up.
All right, so we're going to get started here. I'd like to introduce David Cooke, who is a member of BAIPA and has had some really tremendous success with his approach to getting books into people's hands. And I'm going to let him introduce, he's obviously... I'm going to, let his presentation and himself speak for himself, but let's give him a warm welcome to David Cooke.
Thank you. Oh, now? Wait. Wrong way?
I think you're on. Keep talking.
Which way? That way. Okay. Thank you. Interesting story. I came into this group in the late 90s, and we used to meet at Redwood High School in Centerville, and in the Krebs conference room. I don't know if anybody here remembers those days. And the woman that was in charge of the community education at the time, once in a while would stick a head in the door, through the door, and say, "Hi everybody, my name is Lynn Moody. If anybody here would like to teach a class on the subject that you're writing your book on, give me a call. 945-3660. That's 945-3660. And she'd be gone, And I'd hear this once in a while, and I remember waking up one Tuesday morning and a light bulb went on, and I called her up and I said, my book isn't quite ready. I don't have a teaching credential, but I would love to give that a try. And she said, come on down to my office and we'll write up a description for your class. So I did that, and my first class I had, I think, 23 people. I had nothing prepared. No slides, no blackboard, no whiteboard, no overhead projector. I just spoke about my experience of building my own house in a very different way. I collected a lot of the materials first, and we designed the house around the materials I collected. So this was in San Anselmo, an area called Sleepy Hollow, as some of you are familiar with. We lived there for 9 years, and we sold it, and my wife and I went our separate ways, and I remarried. The house sold last year for $2 million, so it's a pretty nice house, okay? So I did that first class, and my book was almost ready, and I just started looking for more places to teach. And for 10 years, I was traveling mostly on the West Coast, but I also did some across the country, Chicago, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C. But mostly I would go to south of San Diego, a college called Palomar College, all the way up to Whatcom College, which is in Bellingham. And I would always drive over the border into Canada just for fun. I would never drive into the other border. Obvious reasons. Well, I don't know. Anyway, Canada, being British, Canada is more friendly to me. So that's, let me go to the next slide. So community education, my class, Build Your Dream House for a Song, is 3 hours long. And so I started with nothing. I then went to using whatever board was in the classroom, a whiteboard or a blackboard, and I would, make a few notes and do a few drawings, and I don't draw very well anyway. And okay, I'm getting a little bit off the slide, but it doesn't matter. I was in a classroom one time, and somebody had left a transparency on an overhead projector. And I'm like, I wonder what this is. And I took it home to my wife, and she said, that's for an overhead projector. So, they're actually very easy to make. You just take the copy down to someone like Kinko's, the the piece of paper with the print on it, and they make a transparency. So then you can use an overhead projector. So I did that for a while, and gradually, of course, moved into PowerPoint. Obviously, my class is 3 hours. I think it started at 2 or 2.5 hours. And I find that with questions, I could probably cover it in 2 hours, but with questions from the students, 3 hours is just enough. And we have a 10-minute break in the middle. I brought a couple of these along that maybe we could pass around. This is Santa Rosa Junior College, and this is Cabrillo College. So I have another business, and it's in the construction field, and I'm so busy with that, I've really cut back on doing these classes, and I do love doing these classes. My book retails for $24.95. I sell it to my students for $20, and the first time I did my class at Santa Rosa Junior College, which was last spring, I think I had 27 people in the class, and they wouldn't let me make the book mandatory, so it was optional, and I sold 25 books. So, you know, that's pretty damn good. And Cabrillo College, it's a mandatory purchase, and if it's a couple, I don't make them buy 2 books for obvious reasons. Okay, so, you know, starting out in the late 90s, we didn't have everything available online like we do today. And it wasn't as easy to find places to teach. So as I was traveling, I would stop in different towns, and the Chamber of Commerce was a great place to stop, because they often had these little catalogs in the Chamber of Commerce. And I'd look through them and see if I fit, and then I would call them up and see if I could get in there. And I was doing, I have to tell you, in my top, I was doing 100 classes a year. So that's a lot, and it was, you know, pretty much a full-time income for me. Once you get started with one of these colleges, very often they will email you and say, can you give me a date for fall or the spring? Or some of them have 4, some of them have winter, spring, summer, and fall. Some of them have 2, fall and spring only. So, okay. Am I using this mic for this audio clip? Okay, so I'm making a phone call here to find out what I have to do.
Use the handheld.
The handheld? Which is? Sorry. It's just that we couldn't find a speaker cord, so. Sorry. All right. Listen. Oh, I think I have to. This is not allowed.
Can you guys hear that at all?
What's up? Fine.
I'm looking at the website, I'm looking at the extension program. On the left-hand side, downward, you'll see something about proposing work. Submit a class
Okay, hopefully, we couldn't manage to find a speaker cord, but, so typically what I will do is I will call the college or the adult education program and find out what I have to do to submit a proposal for a new class. And invariably today, the form's gonna be online, so it's pretty straightforward. That was Cabrillo College, and I've been there ever since. I go there twice a year. It's about it's about a 90-mile, hour and a half drive from where I live in Santa Fe. But you know, I don't mind doing. I do my classes now on a Saturday, and that works well for me. So one of the things that you might be interested in is maybe teaching more than one class. So I was teaching the other class, which is how to become a community education instructor, in the afternoon. So I do my regular class in the morning, and then I would do how to become a community education instructor in the afternoon. And that sort of made sense because I've driven that far. And, you know, why not do two classes and make more money rather than 3 hours and then driving straight back again. So you could do a class in the evening, pretty much Monday through Friday. I don't think Friday is a good night to do a class, but I have done them on a Friday night and I've still had a good turnout. I like Saturday mornings, just because, you know, I'm busy with my other business, and the weekday evenings I don't really want to do it anymore. So consider doing in the evenings, and consider doing it on a Saturday. And I thought I brought College of Marin. College of Marin doesn't seem to have a lot going on at the present time. I started teaching my class, as I explained, through the Tamil Pius Union High School District. And they have three, and they've stopped this year, it's all gone. But they had Drake High School, Redwood High School, and Tamil Pius High School. They were all part of the same community education school district. So I would alternate between those three different schools. And they sent an announcement out to all the instructors a few months ago, and we all got together at Redwood High School, and the people from College of Marin came in to talk to us. And I got the impression pretty strongly that they were only paying $20 an hour. And I'm not willing to do my class for $20 an hour. So I'm not going to College of Marin unless they decide to change the way they want to pay people.
That was total or per person? Per student?
No, they're paying you, the instructor, $20 an hour. Yeah, I know. It's like, why bother? So their catalog is pretty skinny right now, and
What was
you
the
know,
most you ever made per hour?
I've made as much as $1,000 for my 3-hour class. So I used to go to a college up north in Ballytown called Whatcom, and I would always get at least 40 people in my class. And I always made my book optional. I never made it mandatory. And my wife kept saying, make it mandatory, make it mandatory. So, you know, Cabrillo College, it's there. It says in very, very clearly, $20 material fee payable to instructor in class. So I did my class last Saturday, and there was a young woman who, I don't think she had the money, so I said, keep the book and just give it back to me at the end of the class. And as I was driving home, I said to myself, oh, I should have just given it to her. You know, and of course it was too late at that point. I wish I thought about it at the time. But one guy bought two, so I made up for it. So some of the places, do you guys remember the Learning Annex? Yeah, I don't know what they're doing anymore, but when you did a class, I used to like doing it with them. They would rent a conference room in a hotel in downtown San Francisco. And when the students came in, they'd have to sign off on which you're supposed to do anyway. Half the time I forget. But the students are supposed to sign off on like a roster. And the Learning Annex would only pay you for the people that were there, even though they probably wouldn't give them a refund anyway if they didn't show up. So, I don't really agree with that, but you need to be aware of those kinds of things. I haven't updated, so anybody that when I taught this class, Become a Community Education Instructor, this was also a mandatory purchase. I think it was $30. I'm going to give you guys this. So you have to email me. There'll be, at the end of this presentation, there'll be an email. I printed this out yesterday at Kinko's. So it's I think it's 50 or 60 pages of good information. So all you have to do is email me and I'll send it to you.
Wow.
What I was trying to say is I need to update some of the links. There's a bunch of links at the back that I haven't because I've been so busy. I own a small business called Marin County Hardwood Floors. We install and we finish hardwood floors. And we've just been flat out, so, make money while the sun shines, right? So there's another one in Sacramento that I used to teach at called the Learning Exchange. They sort of work the same way, but I think they're gone too. But there's still tons of places. In fact, there's a link for community colleges in California. And I think there's over 100 community colleges in California. And most of them, many of them have community education classes. So, there's lots of opportunities out there. Usually, ask a question anytime, okay? Yeah.
So you keep all the proceeds from your book sales, correct?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Usually there's a discussion about the fee for your class. But if you look through these catalogs, or if you look online at that catalog, you can get a pretty good idea of where you belong price-wise, okay? Yeah.
I taught at continuing ed at college in Marin for several years. That's about 5 years ago. I don't think I would have gone down there for $20.
Yeah. How were they paying you
I
then?
thought it was maybe 40.
Okay. Yeah. What my feeling about that is, when you're getting started doing this, take whatever you can get just to get the experience. I mean, I was doing some for $20 an hour, and I'd sell a few books. So when I originally contacted Lynn Moody at Redwood High School, the light bulb that went on was, oh, this is a way to sell some books, right? And I wasn't really thinking about making money teaching the class. I was thinking about selling some books. So it didn't really matter to me. But I can remember going to Martinez Adult School, and I had an interview with this guy, and I'm sitting there, and he's, we're talking, and he says, is 70% of enrollment okay with you? I almost fell off the chair. So, this guy's offering me 70% of what they take in. And I think these guys should be offering you 40 or 50% because that way they get good people in good classes. I mean, who are you going to get for $20 an hour, right?
Have you experimented with any of the online course platforms?
I haven't. That's worth considering, for sure.
Also, years ago when I lived in Los Angeles, I taught writing the first novel at the UCLA Writers Program. And I think they paid $1,000 for a 10-week course, so I guess it was $100 a shot.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, are any of the universities also opening opportunities where maybe they have a better budget than the community?
Yeah, probably. Most of my classes were at community colleges. I used to do Humboldt State and also Cal Poly. And I think most of those pay 40 or 50%. Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
a lot of work though.
Yeah. What? What's a lot of work? Doing,
I was,
What
like
you-
last, I just thought it was a lot of work, I gave it up, it was too much work.
yeah.
And because it was every week, it was a different subject,
Oh.
with you, you just repeat what you
Yeah,
know over and
exactly.
over.
And
That's-
I have fun with it. I
Yeah,
tell
that's
jokes
a
and.
better gig.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Could you tell us something about your experience creating courses for Linda?
For what?
Linda Moody? Isn't that Linda?
Oh, Lynn Moody. No, I was just, she was the coordinator
Yeah,
for the program at Redwood, at the Channel Pass School District.
so this, I'm thinking of lynda.com.
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I may have
I
heard
think,
that.
I think it's actually, that's her name. Yeah.
No, that's different completely.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right. So this is last Saturday. This isn't typically what I would expect to make. So, I did this last night just to include this because I was there last Saturday. Last Saturday at Cabrillo College, the cost of the class was $58. 17 students paid to take the class. Cabrillo College got $986. I get 40% of that, $394. I sold 15 books at $15. I made $225 on the books. So for my 3 hours, I made $619. That's not bad.
Very good,
Right.
it's way
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Are you getting the cost to buy the books from that too?
Yes, because my book cost me $5 and I sold it for $20.
Oh,
So that's my net profit on the book. So yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. If you did one of those a week, right? Or 2 or 3, you'd have a nice little, I mean, it was always a part-time job for me. It was never, well, it sort of almost was a full-time thing. But that's entirely up to you. You can do as much as you want. So this is the next one is very important. Obviously, the better the course description, the more chance you have of people signing up for your class. So, and I've changed mine a few times over the years, and your bio, I think, is important too. But, not very long, but something strong, so that they feel comfortable taking your class. That's my class. I don't know if you can read that. Can you read that?
No.
Probably not. Yeah. So your home should be I think one of the instructors sort of changes, tweaked it, right? Your home should be a sacred place that nobody can ever take away. One way to get such a place is to build it yourself, which is what I did with my own hands. That way, you will have little or no mortgage. You don't need a license to build your own house. You can build your own house and be mortgage-free in just a few years without the worries about losing your house to foreclosure. So I think that this was written in like after the 2008, around that time. This way our class will steer in the right direction to building your own house for the least amount of money. Learn how to buy land at huge discounts, buy materials for next to nothing, and build it green. Design your house for ease of construction, live on your property, rent-free while you build, use unconventional financing, and get the best help for the least cost. That means you building your own house with your own hands. I kind of have an interesting story because I really didn't have much experience when I built my own house. I didn't find it to be all that difficult. I'm looking at Mr. Builder right now.
Yeah,
But I come from a long line of builders.
yeah,
Dad-
exactly.
My dad was a builder, my granddad, my great-granddad.
I gotta say something here.
Yeah, please.
I have had countless calls, my history as a builder, from people who tried to build their own houses who got into terrible trouble. Be damn careful if your dad wasn't a builder, giving it a try. That's all I got to say.
No, that's good, that's good. I was hoping you would say something. I should mention that my father and I did not spend 1 minute in our entire lives working together. So,
I
anyway.
have a builder, question.
Yeah.
I have a, response to both you guys is that in 1973, my ex-husband, myself, my 3 sons, my father-in-law, his brother, the other Italian males, and my brother-in-law was a contractor who guided the way that we built our own house, and we sold our property in Marin, bought the land, and built a house, totally free of debt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we
Good for you.
we did
It's
it. The
fantastic.
house turned out great. We even put solar, passive solar energy before that was a big deal.
Yeah,
And, it mattered. So anyhow, I'm loving this because it's true.
yeah.
We can do just about anything we
Yeah,
want.
you can, I mean, you can do it, I mean, no. Okay, so, yes, please.
These classes, are mostly how-to classes that were, I mean, for a fiction writer, well, I guess you could teach how to write fiction.
Yeah.
Could you repeat her question for
So,
everybody?
the question was, are these classes mostly how-to classes? Supposing you wanted to teach a class on writing fiction, and absolutely you can do that. There are classes in these catalogs and online
Then what
about
would
different
you start
writing
your own
classes.
novel? I guess that's really what I meant.
Yeah, I don't know, because that's not my field of
Yeah.
expertise. You guys, might wanna take a quick glance and just pass them around. You know, I think what sort of, yeah,
I just would think it's important that perhaps you are aware that the state has crunched the adult school budget so far that the supervisors in charge of these programs are looking for other jobs.
yeah, that's
And,
probably what happened at the
So,
town
but
class.
the colleges, on the other hand, who used to offer free classes to adults, and that shut down, that's sort of reopening.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put my attention on non-credit college as opposed to adult school, unless you really are juiced into something that,
Yeah.
that will work for you.
Yeah, I think you just have to look around and see what's there and be flexible. Excuse me, if one place stops doing it, you just, go to another. Obviously, for me, I didn't mind doing the traveling. My daughter lives in Minneapolis, and I should do it again there because I don't get to see my grandkids very much. But I used to do one at, I can't remember the name, but it was right outside Minneapolis, and my daughter lives in Minneapolis. I remember meeting an instructor one time who was doing a class, I think it was something to do with traveling, or, something to do with, maybe writing, travel writing or something. And he would plan his classes on the places that he wanted to visit, which makes perfect sense, right? So you can do it all over the country if you want. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so I joined, when I started doing this, I joined Toastmasters. And Toastmasters is a great place to get better as a speaker and to feel more comfortable. Because a lot of people have problems standing up in front of a crowd. And I don't really think I ever had a real problem. But Toastmasters was very helpful for me, and it was a chapter right here in Novato that I joined. We used to meet in a high school on I think it was a Tuesday evening, and I went for about 2 years, and I just felt that helped me tremendously. So I also took some acting classes with my daughter. I have 2 daughters. One lives here, the other one lives in Minneapolis, and the one that lives here. We both like acting, so we did some acting classes together through actually College of Marin. So there's a group called the National Speakers Association, which you might want to check out too. I've never had really anything to do with them, but there's lots of professional speakers out there. Well, you get okay. I'm getting away from. I'm thinking about Dan Pointer all of a sudden. How can you rehearse your class? Invite your friends over. Do your class for your friends. Give them something to eat, a glass of wine, or a non-alcoholic drink if you prefer. So get comfortable during your class and try and be flexible and just I think the more you do it, obviously, the easier it gets. So I think today really the way to go is PowerPoint. I should mention, I had a really bad experience at Santa Rosa. 2 times in a row. I went there a year ago and I could not get their overhead projector to work. And I always get there early, which I think is the next slide anyway. I went to another classroom and somebody was giving a class and there was a guy sitting in a chair by the door. And I sort of poked my head in and I said, I'm doing a class down there and I can't get the projector to work. He said, I think I can help you. And he actually stood up on the table and found a switch on the top of the projector that somebody hadn't turned on. So guess what I do, ladies and gentlemen?
Bring your own.
Bring my own. So last 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, when I was in Santa Rosa, same problem. And I found another instructor, and she had a little bit of time, and she came over, she couldn't get it to work either. So I have my own projector, I have my own speakers. So, worst case scenario, I can just find a wall to project onto.
How much is that rig?
Well, I bought it a long time. This thing has been the best little thing ever. I think it was like $1,100, but I think they're $300 or $400 now.
Do you
Yeah.
have recommendations for particular brands or?
No. This is called In Focus. And I'm going to buy a new, it's supposed to have a 400-hour lifespan. I know I've used it way more than that. And I keep thinking I need to order a new bulb. And this thing has never let me down. This has been the best thing ever for me, this little gadget. Yeah, so I would.
Do you need a laptop too, or something like that?
Say again?
Do you need a laptop to connect the projector?
You need both.
Oh.
Yeah. And the price of everything has come down tremendously. They're half of what they used to be.
Dave, why do you need a PowerPoint and a projector?
You need the projector to project. So I'm having trouble with words this morning. You need the projector to project the PowerPoint.
PowerPoint is on your computer. Oh, right.
PowerPoint. So I see.
So right now we're using that.
I see.
Okay. And if that's not working,
I got it. Yeah.
I've done this. The students are all sitting here saying, I'm really sorry. Can you please move over there? Or maybe you're okay sitting there. And I'll set it up right here.
I thought you were using that for some sort of separate documentation.
No,
No, okay.
no, this is my backup.
It's got it.
Yeah.
It's connected to PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Flexibility. And you
Yeah.
said you bring your own speaker? If there's no PA?
Yeah.
Huh,
Yeah, I've got everything. Everything I need.
what's that called?
Speakers.
Oh, right. Like a P, is it a PA? Is it?
No, it's just 2 little speakers.
Speaker.
Yeah.
But if you don't have sound on your PowerPoint, you don't even need the speakers, you talk.
Exactly,
you
exactly.
project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun to have. I've got 2 little video clips on my other PowerPoint presentation, Build Your Dream House for a Song. There's one with Cary Grant and Myrna Loy. It's called,
The dream house.
yeah, the Dream House one, right? And there's this 4-minute scene where they're working with the architect, and they keep making changes, and it gets ridiculous. And all the students in the room are laughing their heads off, So, I mean, it is fun to be able to do that.
Do you have recommendations for brands for laptops?
No, I think Apple was very clever by putting them in all the schools, remember? So all of my daughters both have Apples. I have a really good friend who's a Spanish teacher. She uses an Apple. I started with a PC and I'm staying with a PC. So I'm a PC guy. So you don't need, I mean, it depends on what your class is about. I just think it's fun to have this technology available. The name of that movie is Mr. Blanding's Bill's History Math. And you can probably find it on Netflix. It's a great movie. So I get there early. Like last Saturday when I was going to Cabrillo, they sent me an email on, I think, Thursday, saying this is a reminder of your class on Saturday. By the way, you need to pick up a key. Usually when I get to Cabrillo College, the room is open for me. And then somebody comes by and helps me hook up my laptop to the overhead projector, all right? So I sent her an email, because they think you live locally. So this is a new person. So I sent her an email and I said, I live in San Rafael. And she said, well, David, unfortunately, we've got 4 new instructors starting at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning. So I said, okay, I'll come to the community. I said, I'll come and pick up the key, just tell me where it is. So, that's all right. My class usually starts at, I like 10 a.m., better than 9 a.m., and they put me in for 9 a.m., which meant I had to I left my house at 6:30, because I got there at 8, I went down to the community education office and got the key to walk out my room, but I also told her in my email that I needed technical support to help me hook up my equipment. And somebody did come by around 8:45 and help me. Those things are not easy if you're not familiar with that particular classroom, that particular setup. Bring your own, or make sure they've got somebody there that can help you get set up if you're using PowerPoint. So I've never had a problem at Cabrillo, and I've been going there for years. And the 2 times at Santa Rosa, I've major problems. So, but I've had, first time I was at Santa Rosa, I had 27 people, and I sold 25 books, even though it was optional. Pretty good. And the second time I had, I think, it was like 17 or 18 or 19, and I still sold 17 books, so pretty damn good again. Find out where the restrooms are, because your students, if it's a 3-hour class like mine, you're going to give them a break, and they don't know because they haven't been there before, so you need to know where the restrooms are. If there's an emergency, make sure you have some contact information for somebody in case there's a problem and you need to call somebody. At Cabrillo College last Saturday, halfway through the class, some guy stopped by and said, I'm with community education, just checking to make sure everything's okay. That's really nice. So, it's nice to have support. Cabrillo is great. Entertain your audience. They came to see you, they could be doing something else, right? So this guy goes to the doctor, he says, doctor, I need your help. I keep thinking I'm a moth. Doctor said, there's a psychiatrist down the street, you should be talking to him. The patient said, well, actually, doctor, I was on my way there, but your light was on. I think it's important, if you're teaching something that's kind of boring, try and, spruce it up and lighten it up and make people laugh a little bit. I used to, actually, this is very, very important, this next bit. If they don't have, the Cabrillo College now no longer has an in-class evaluation form. Santa Rosa does. And this time I remember to give everybody the evaluation form to fill out. Cabrillo College wants you to remind your students to, when they get home, to go online and fill out the evaluation form, okay? But it's nice to have an evaluation form because you can stay in touch with your students. Maybe you're going to do something else in the future. Maybe you have a newsletter that you want to, you know, keep in touch with people and send them information on whatever it is you're doing. There's a guy named Warren, I think Warren is still around. I met Warren a few times. Warren Racine, R-A-C-I-N-E. I need to check him out and make sure he's still around. Or if he's retired. He used to do a class on foreclosures. And we would run into each other once in a while at some of these colleges, like Foothill De Anza, that's where he lives down there. And so he would do his class on foreclosures, but then he would ask you to sign up for his actual go to a foreclosure like workshop. And he would take a group of 6 or 7 students who would pay $500 or $600 each, and he would take you with him. He would take his students with him to the courthouse steps to see how a foreclosure sale actually worked. So those kinds of things can be, you know, huge add-ons for people like us that are, you know, doing other things. One of the things that I cover and I spend probably 30 minutes in my class. I talk about buying, which most people don't know about. I talk about buying land at tax sales. So if you owned a piece of land in California and you stop paying your property taxes, that property is sold at a public auction to the highest bidder at a tax sale. Most of them are now online, but I explain what you have to do to make sure that the property is worth bidding on before you either go to the auction or bid online. So I started doing a few workshops where I would take a group of students to check out these properties at the various tax sales in the state of California. And you know, I think I was charging $500 each for doing that, and I did a few of those. Email addresses. So the other reason for the evaluation form is you want to see how you're doing, right? The college or the adult education program wants to know how you're doing, but you want to know how you're doing too. And that's the reason for having an evaluation form. And maybe stay in touch, like I said. So the bad news is there's a long lead time. Most of the places have probably already finished scheduling for the fall. So, but not all of them have. You could maybe still find some that haven't completed that for the fall. Cabrillo College, I think their cutoff date was April 19th. And I emailed, the woman's name is Jill Gallo. I emailed her last week and I said, Jill, I really apologize for not getting my date in time. Can I still give you a date for the fall? And she said yes. So I gave her a date for the fall and I'll be back in the fall. And Santa Rosa actually hasn't contacted me yet, so you might want to check out Santa Rosa. They also have a summer. I'm going to be there in the summer, I think in July. Sorry, Bob.
Just in the brochures being passed around, I noticed in the back, at least in one of them, they also, all those same places were offering online classes. So,
Yeah.
besides the online platforms on the web, that's another online place.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting. I think the Learning Annex. Remember they had some huge kind of problem some years ago, and I think they're doing online classes, but I haven't checked them out. But I'm kind of wondering how that would work. You just talk, and there's no questions, or what?
Well,
How does that work?
probably do it as a live webinar.
Yeah.
So you could take questions
Okay.
by chat.
Yeah.
You can use Zoom.
Yeah,
A lot of
Zoom-
people use
Zoom.
Zoom now.
Yeah.
And you can basically set it up so you just talk, or you can set it up so it's interactive.
Okay. What was it called?
For guests and the
Zoom,
Zoom.
Z-O-O-M.
C-O-O-M. Okay. That's worth checking out.
It'd probably be easier to sell them ebooks than paperbacks, but.
Yeah. Yeah, the community colleges have a longer lead time than the adult education programs. And the private, there's some private seminar companies like the Learning Annex, this, you know, they're scattered around the country, and they have a much shorter lead time too. You know, the obvious one is your book or your handout. You can sell other people's materials at your class. You can sell CDs, audio stuff. So I actually do fill in a sales tax form at the end of the year, and I don't charge people sales tax, but I have to pay the sales tax. So, you know, I multiply the number of books that I sell, and then I multiply that by the tax rate, and I send them a check. So, you're supposed to pay sales tax. You get a number from the State Board of Equalization, and then you get a form every year.
You only, have to pay state tax if it's an actual print copy. If it's ebook, you do not have to. Anything digital, you do not have to pay state.
That's good to know, I didn't know that, thank you. This may not apply to you guys, because you all have your own stuff. But in case you weren't aware of this, anything that's published by the government is free for the taking. But it doesn't matter for you guys, because you all have your own material. You don't really need this next one either. Join BAIPA. And of course the bigger group down south, which I just rejoined last year. That's very helpful. And you know, I'm sure everybody here is aware of that.
It's BAIPA.org, David.
It's .org, not .net.
Was it ever .net? It must have been once.
We're .org, oh, God, a long, long, long time ago.
Okay, well, it shows you how out of touch I am. I took a class from a
There's still a
guy.
website at BAIPA.net.
What?
There is still a website at BAIPA.net.
Oh.
There's still a
Thanks for
website.
calling that, George.
Is it?
No, thank you, I'll change that. But is it the same group? Because you know, if you put in BAIPA, there's some other places
Yeah.
there.
Is that still us?
It is,
Yeah.
I don't know who's hosting,
Will it,
located in the Sunnyvale City Center?
not reaching us though, right? Or is it something else?
Bay Area Independent Publishers Association, Green. That's what? Yes.
Let's bring it back to David, but thank you for bringing that to our attention.
No, that's good to know. Yeah. I took an HTML class from a guy, and I think it was at the College of Marin. And he was pretty smart too, so he would make his students aware that he was available to come to your home and help you, because back in those days I was making my own website. And he would come to your house for a fee, obviously, and help you, you know, do that kind of stuff. So a lot of instructors, you know, you take the class and then they say, I have this service available or that service available. All your expenses are deductible. If you're doing what I was doing, and driving a lot, then all of your mileage, of course, is deductible, while you're away. Hotels, meals, airfares, it's kind of neat, you know? I mean, if you have relatives that you want to visit, right? I need to find a place in Brisbane, Australia where I can do a class. Go visit my sister. So everything's deductible, which is great. I actually got, it was kind of funny, I actually got audited one time because I had so many miles. But I was able to prove that I was driving, doing all these classes, so.
Do you do a spreadsheet to keep yourself on track with where you're supposed to be and when and which ones? Is there like
Yeah, you know what I was for a while, when I was doing a lot of these?
yeah, when you were doing
On my-
100 a year?
On my website, I had a calendar where I was teaching. So, these days I just put them in my phone, on my calendar.
Yeah.
It works.
I mean, you have to, so you just look at the month ahead and as a whole month, but you don't put it on a spreadsheet or anything.
I know, yeah. It's not a bad idea.
If you have a calendar on your website, people can sign up there?
No,
No,
you have to sign up through the school directly.
okay.
I got an email from 2 people last week saying they found out about my class too late and they wanted to know where I've got other classes coming up. And they thanked me and they said, we'll see you either in Santa Rosa or in Cabrillo. Because I wanted to take the class and they saw it too late. So. Yes.
Do you ever hear back from students that they took your class and then they went ahead and did get the land and the material?
A couple, not a lot, not as many as I'd like to. I
Did
mean,
they send you a picture or anything like that?
no.
It's a dream
No.
only.
You know, there's one that I put on the back of my book. He says, "Dear Mr. Cooke, thank you for writing this book. With the help of your techniques and sweat equity, we are living in our dream house." So that was nice. Yeah, I wish I get more of those. Anyway. The employer identification number you don't need unless you have people working for you. You don't really need a fictitious business name to do this. I did set up, when I published my book, my own publishing company, which I guess most of us here have done. And I can use, you know what I found out? I used to teach this class at Modesto Junior College, and I always got a big turnout, like 36 people there. And then I sort of stopped doing it there. And last year I called them and I said I'd like to do my class there. And I sent them a course description and a copy of my book, and I never heard from them. And I was looking online and it said we pay $20 an hour, but it also said we are open to, another kind of fee structure. So I think I need to contact them again. I don't know what's going on there. But one of my students who took this class told me that they found out at Modesto that if they had a business name, they were willing to pay them a percentage of the, percentage of the, of the take from those students.
Yeah, my husband and I, when we started independent publishing my stuff, we formed an LLC called Life Events Media LLC, and we got a tax ID number and all that, and it costs you money to have it, so you have to make enough income that it makes it worthwhile, but it simplified everything. We had that tax ID, we never had any issues as vendors, it just made it easier. And it's not for everybody, but it's something. You can also get health insurance if you have 2 members in your LLC. They cannot turn you down. Now we have Obamacare sort of, we hope, but before that, we were in a situation where we couldn't, my husband had a condition and we couldn't get health insurance. So that was another thing the LLC did. If you have an LLC, 2 people in it, you can buy health insurance. So it was interesting.
No, that's good to know, And that stands for Limited
Liability
Corporation.
Yeah. Costs about $800 a year to get it from the state. So you have to have enough money coming in that it makes it worthwhile. But everything else was simpler after we did that.
Just in case you're not going to discuss it, I just thought I'd
Please.
If you're going to sell any of your print books if you're going to sell any of your print books at a location, you were going to need your seller license through the State Board of Equalization. So make sure if you have something scheduled where you're going to want to sell your books, that you have that applied for. You can do it online through the California State Board of Equalization, okay?
And what's it called?
State Board of Equalization is for your seller's ID license.
Yeah.
They print their name.
Yeah.
Franchise.
Yeah, it's Franchise Tax Board.
No, for print and fees.
Oh.
No, it's not the franchise tax
no.
board.
It's not. Different.
That's the old one, yeah.
No, they changed the name, it's California Tax and Fees or something.
Yeah, there you go.
But if you look up the franchise tax board, it'll take you to the right.
It'll take, yes, it
No,
will.
it'll take you to the right link.
Yes.
Franchise tax board is our state income tax.
I know, but it will take you directly to the right site. So if you're confused about, because there's been so many name changes in the last couple of years, you will get the link and go to the right place. I just went through it.
Okay.
Just look up California sales tax ID.
Yeah.
There you go. That makes
You'll
sense.
get there, or
Yeah.
talk to your bookkeeper or your tax preparer.
Right.
California Department of Tax and Fee Administration.
There we go. Yes.
I have a question in regards to the EIN. Nonprofits have an EIN, and if you are, doing a workshop or
Microphone?
something.
Right. Everybody wants to hear your
I'm
question.
sorry.
I see that there's an EIN required there, and one of the things that a nonprofit would have is an EIN, which I have, and every time we do an event, we publish the EIN, and that would apply to sales if they're called donations, right? People make a donation, we sell something minimum price, whatever,
Yeah.
and we, because I bring back a ton of stuff from South America that I sell
Mhm.
as a fundraiser.
Okay.
And so the book would fit nicely into
Yeah,
that collection of
sure.
stuff. So anyhow, if you have an EIN that's for a nonprofit, if you word the money you're taking in as a donation, if it's applicable, well, you don't have to deal with the taxes.
And then that's the number they give if they wanna write it off.
Right.
They need a tax ID number, which is the EIN. So you can put it on your receipt, like on
Right.
Square and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
I wanted to add something. It's a good idea to name your business,
to name your publishing company.
Mhm.
Helen Sedgwick last month talked about this. And if you have a fictitious business name, you can get a tax ID number for that company, and that's what you use when you talk to these schools. Okay, so yes, you can do it with your social security number, but I think you get more credibility if you go in as a publishing company.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I should mention that I've noticed from doing so many of these that some of the schools send you a 1099 and some of them send you a W-2, so, that for whatever reason, they decide to do it that
One
way.
other thing about the LLC, another thing about the LLC, we were Life Events Media because my husband has stuff under that, and then we did a DBA, doing business as Lion's Paw Publishing. So it all came under that, and we used our tax ID number for everything, and that was another easy route.
Yeah.
One other thing about LLCs and corporations is California is really expensive, both in terms of setting it up and the annual minimum tax. You do not have to, even if you're in California, register set yours up in California. Same way most corporations set their corporation up in Delaware, no matter where they're set up. You can set it up in another state. Wyoming and Nevada are basically places of choice for especially LLCs, and their annual taxes are cheap and the setup is cheap.
That's good to know. If you like speaking, you can find lots of other places besides colleges and adult education programs to speak, like trade groups and clubs and corporations and stuff like that. I think I've run out of material. So we're a few minutes early. I think that's my last slide now. Oh, but you can, if you want some help, email me or call me. If you want this, just email me and say I was at BAIPA on Saturday, and I'd like your. I think it's an ebook. It does actually have a website. Something else Bob and I need to work on another website.
What is it exactly?
So it's an ebook. It's the handout for the class on become a community education instructor, and I think if you go online, I think it's like $29. So it's free for you, and it's got lots of good information, and everything we covered and more. And then there's what's in here, which is interesting, is a lot of course descriptions. So the one thing that is worth mentioning, somebody, I think the lady in front here was talking about during the class on fiction writing. If you look in those catalogs and you see something similar, you may not belong there, right? So you have to find your niche and see, okay, this person is teaching this class, I need to give mine a different angle or something to make them want to pick it up.
Do you have a PDF version of the ebook?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to send you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to send you. So just email me and I'll send you that. And if you have any questions, you can call me. That phone doesn't ring. It's in my house, but I do pick up once a day and call people back. I use it for my other business as well. Yes.
What is the school? You said Santa Rosa and
Santa Rosa Junior College,
what's the other one?
Cabrillo. Cabrillo. Cabrillo, except it's pronounced Cabrillo.
Where are they?
Cabrillo is in the town of Aptos, which is by Santa Cruz.
I just want to say that you can, if you want to experiment or even do this in a small way, because I'm doing it on June 1st, you can rent a room and then do it all yourself using the power of social media. For example, I'm paying $65 to rent this monstrous space that can expand out to 40 or 50 chairs, and then you keep all the money. So it's everything you discussed, but you can do it in a small way. It just comes down to marketing. So
yeah, how do you get all of those people? How do you find your audience? I guess
right.
is
That's
the
the thing.
question.
That's where social media comes in,
Right.
because what you're describing is great because they're doing all the marketing for you. But
Yes, exactly.
if you, for example, I'm advertising my thing in one meetup that reaches 4,000 people, and then there's stuff beyond that and searchable and everything. So that's an option, especially if you just want to experiment on a small scale. So.
Yeah, what's your subject?
My subject is sort of self-empowerment in this particular thing, so
Okay.
a little different, not a little
Oh, that's good.
esoteric.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'll
But
be speaking about some of that this afternoon too.
And I'm coming to it, so it'll be very cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know too, you can go to different associations. So I've been invited by Mechanics Library to teach a class. I've also been invited by CoLab, which is a co-working space in Santa Rosa. And so there's lots of opportunities, plus creating your own online course. So if you want to know more about that, that's part of what our visual storytelling class is all about. So there's just an infinite number of things. And all of the places David listed before, I taught at Learning Annex, I've taught through community college, I've taught at adult school, I taught at Town Mount Pius High. If you start speaking, people usually invite you other places. So just get started.
Good idea. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really love doing my class. Have a lot of fun with it, and I think people they get excited and they feel a little bit empowered that, somebody somebody with no experience could do what I did, and then they could do it, they can do it too.
Hi, I've done a lot of speaking because I used to be in broadcasting, and the one thing I learned is that nonfiction is a lot easier to get paid speaking gigs because you're selling information and you're providing a service. I wrote a book called Right Sizing Your Life, Simplifying Your Surroundings While Keeping What Matters Most. And that's for people of a certain age or downsizing and very practical, and here's how you do all that. And you know, if I wanted to, I gave 60 talks a year when that book came out. And it kept the book going, which is the other thing. For fiction writers, I don't know, they think it's a privilege for you to speak, and it's pretty hard to get them to pay, except maybe the way you're going about it is a good idea. But you know, $20 an hour. I mean, an editor said to me one time, what is the best use of your time? And that's the big question, you know, if it's supplementary and there's a way to make it worth your while. And I realized the other day, the lady who cleans my house, she does it really fast. She's making $50 an hour. And I'm thinking, she's making more money than I am. So I think, you know, we really, it's the wise use of our time as writers that's always the question if you're trying to make a living. So this is a great ancillary thing to do, you know, and especially if you have a niche. And even as a fiction writer, if you have a niche, if you're writing about mysteries, you know, or you have some very special thing. But when I taught at UCLA, I just found it was really a lot of work, and it was taken away from my writing time, because each week I had to have a different, you know, story structure, plotting, this and that, you know. So it's really, those are the issues that you get to think about in public speaking.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, in terms of fiction, you know, when we're doing book readings, is a way that fiction, you know, that's a different kind of approach to being a presenter in a, you know, but with a fiction book, is that we're reading our content or, you know, talking about the world of that.
Which is make it worth your time.
Right, or it's just a, you know, it's not just numbers.
David, I was just wondering if you had a picture of your dream house that you built that you could flash up there for us to admire.
Maybe. Oh, you had a question, go ahead.
Two suggestions. One thing is there are some bookstores where you can do panels and workshops, and so you might look into that. And then also, besides getting onto other people's meetup groups, you can set up your own meetup group. And what they'll do is, if you have to do this within 1 or 2 days, because then they'll send out announcements. You put up to 15 keywords for groups in your niche, and then they'll send them out, and then you get people to sign up, and then you can do both paid and unpaid programs.
Other questions or comments while we're eagerly waiting to see a picture of the home?
Just a quick comment on what you were talking about as far as like teaching at, you know, like a university or something like that. A friend of mine had asked me to speak at this thing in San Francisco or teach a class, and they had so many, besides what you talked about, they had so much. You had to use this like Grammarly program. You had to have all these things tied into it, which you had to learn, which and it just goes on and on and on. You're right. And you're looking at this like, I think I'm making about $4 an hour when it's all said and done. So that's another consideration. You're not just teaching, it's all the stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah.
On the subject of that LLCs that gentleman, you mentioned Wyoming and one other state. I didn't catch. Nevada. Thank you all.
Okay.
All right. I guess that let's.
You know what, I can show you a picture. I just figured out how I can do this. Because the last section of my presentation, slideshow.
Scroll down.
From the beginning. Okay. I'm going to just go through these, and you'll see the house going, so I picked up this steel at an auction for $900, and we designed the house using that steel. And that's what's so unique about it. We lived on the property in a mobile home, and there's the living room. There's my daughter Emily. There's the stairs. So that's probably the best picture of the finished house right there.
How long did it take you to make it?
2 years. But we were rent free. We lived on the property, and we didn't have to pay
What was
any
the
rent.
cost of the materials?
Cost of what?
The materials?
Like, I built that house for $40 a square foot,
Oh, my God.
which is hard to believe.
How long ago was that?
In the 80s. But you know what? There's a section in this presentation on design and in my book where I use a simple software program which you can buy for $100, and you do a floor plan, and it gives you three-dimensional views. It's called 3D Home Architect. No, it's called, I can't remember the name anymore. It generates for you a list of all the materials that you need after you design the house. And the total cost of materials, I updated this in the fall. Total cost of materials to build that house is under $50,000. And that's a 1,600 square foot house. So you can use, I tell people to get professional help, but it's a good place, it's a good way to start.
If you were to sell it now, what would you get for it?
It just sold for $2 million.
Oh,
So yeah, so that's
But you have to consider the land
Would you do
cost.
it again?
we thought we had a TV show going. One of our members from here, Elaine Schultz, who wrote a book about remodeling, suggested I contact Bruce Irving, who used to produce this old house. And I actually went out to Boston and met with him, and he came out and we met with the people at KQED in January of 2008.
Oh.
They put a budget together to make the TV show, and then the financial thing hit, and they just dropped it, and I've tried contacting them and gotten nowhere. But I haven't given up on it. Hopefully sometime we'll still get it going somehow. But my idea today, okay, so the name of the software is Chief Architect Home Designer Suite. The reason I was having trouble is years ago there was a different program by a company called Broderbund, and this one is actually better, and they have online tutorials that you can use. My idea today is to make a TV show, which would probably be, those are typically like 13 episodes. I would teach a young couple how to build their own house. And we would do it the way I did it. We'd go around and we'd collect the stuff first, and we'd find some architect as I did. Actually it's funny, when I bought that steel building, dismantled steel building at an auction for $900, I don't know where these ideas came from. I drove up to UC Berkeley. I found the architectural department. I put a little card on the bulletin board, and it said, graduate student wanted to design a house with some unusual building materials, possible thesis project. And I got a couple of students called me, and I said, make some sketches of what you think we can do with this steel. And they didn't really have any idea. Then I got a call from a guy named Guillermo Marin, who was applying for a teaching job. And he said, I saw your ad, I'd like to talk to you about designing your house. I said, you wouldn't be interested, I'm only paying $1,000. He said, I'm new in California, I need to learn the code. So I actually got a talented architect to design my house for $1,000. Yeah, it was fun. Everything sort of just fell into place. It was a great experience.
You're a good
Anyway.
manifester.
Since we're talking about building, I'd just like to throw in some complimentary information. I I happen to have written a book about building a house. It's up there called Crafting the Considerate House. I built that house about 14 years ago. I built it for $100 a square foot. I think if I was to try to build it again today, given the increase in costs, it would be roughly 2.25 square foot. That does not include the value of my own labor. It took roughly 4,500 man hours to build that house, and that's highly skilled people working on it. It is of comparable size to your house, so there's some comparison figures, updated figures. $30 a square foot for material in today's market sounds
40
sounds really optimistic to me, but you can, if you want to put in the hours, you can salvage material and get material at extremely low cost. It's true.
Yeah.
I just do want to add though that you may or may not have factored this in, but I just feel like people should know this. Building houses now, when I was an apprentice 50 years ago, was one thing. Building a house now is another. It's become incredibly more complicated. And there's a number of reasons for that. Seismic requirements, one. What we call thermal boundary, which is insulation and air sealing, which is very complex, and you're required to pass very tough tests on thermal boundary performance. Waterproofing and water management, which are very difficult now, critical, because if you don't do it properly, your building will fail. And on top of that, ventilation, which if you do not do properly, your house will kill you or make you sick for the rest of your life. And I meet quite a few people who've been made sick by their houses. So, complimentary information. I think what you did can be done by someone who has some background. But I wonder, I have a question. You ever hear from students who say, taking your course was the worst thing that ever happened to me because it started me down this path and I ran into hell and high water?
No, I haven't. You should take my class because you'll learn a few things. Yeah, seriously. I mean,
I'm going to buy your book. I think it'll be very, thought-provoking.
Anybody wants a book, they're here. They're $20.
Can I make a point? It's funny, I realize, I think it's sort of the same thing. People take your class and they realize it's not for them.
Right.
And people would take my writing, the first novel, and I think out of 3 years and probably 80 class students, one person finished the book. One.
All right, we need to wrap it up. Let's say thank you to David Cooke. If you haven't signed up yet for the afternoon workshop with Deborah Myers, that is still an option. Just go see Val over there. And if you can't stay, we'll see you next month.
Yep. Thank you.
So David, how do you take the
So I have a question for you. May I get recorded as well?
Oh well, that's up to whoever is still here.
Okay, I'll ask.